supernatural romance track. And today we've got a one-on-one conversation with Dahlia Rose. I'm so excited to be here. I'm your host, Gail Z Martin. And I want to hear all about Dahlia's books. And let's start with that. Dahlia, please introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Okay. I'm Dahlia Rose. I'm a USA Today bestselling author. I write a multitude of genres. I've been at this for about 15 years. And my first book with Hallmark will be released in October 19th, hoping that it goes to movies soon after. You guys kind of poke them. Twitter, they're on Twitter. And from there, I write from home. This is my full-time job. And I write with my horde all around me. I call them my horde, or the children of the corn. That includes my husband. And now we have a second horde, which is 6 puppies. So life's kind of hectic, but I managed to get the words in there.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned writing in a number of genres. Can you give us kind of an overview of what you write?
Yeah, I write from paranormal, contemporary, fantasy, urban fantasy, historical. I've done thrillers, suspense. The thrillers and suspense I write under my second pen name, and that's Billy Arseneau. Those are more procedural crime thrillers. Hope to be putting out more of that in the coming years. Life, regular work got sidetracked. And I really love writing military romances. That's one of the primary things that I do write when I write contemporaries, is that I give them a military background. Even in my motorcycle romance, motorcycle clubs, they have a military background because that's what I am. I'm a military wife and have been for about 10 years, 15 if you count the, 3 that we weren't married. And so watching everything unfold for, Iraqi freedom and my husband coming back home and everything like that, I just took up the mantle of writing military romance because, in a way, I wanted to give them all a happy ending, kind of like what we have.
Okay. Now, you writing in a number of different genres, it takes a different skill for the different genres. They really do. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
No, there's not.
What do you enjoy about the different subgenres, and maybe what do you find challenging about it?
What I really enjoy is being able to jump from one world to the next. I always say I would be completely bored writing all contemporary or all historicals, or all historical noir. I just have my mind is I have a gauntlet of research, and that's kind of like I like to bounce here and there. So I like bouncing here and there in my book genres. And I find that I can compartmentalize those really well. That if I'm writing a historical, I can push the contemporary to the side. And if I'm writing an urban fantasy, I can push the historical aside. It's become like this little game that I play with myself now in my chalkboard. Like, what are we going to write today? And I'm usually have 2 works in progress working on each time, and they're probably 2 separate genres. So we kind of, like, me and the little ones that live in my head, we all just, play fair and play nice. And we go through it that way. And I usually can get, the amount of word count that I want on one genre, put that aside, lock that away, and then say, okay, it's time for you now. You guys come on up. It's your turn.
I totally understand that. People who don't do this for a living may not, but I totally understand that. And sometimes they get very impatient waiting their turn.
Yeah, and you have to mention that they all live in there. They all have rooms and they hang out. And my husband always asks, how do you keep all of this going in your head? And I'm like, zero clue. I don't know. Zero clue, excuse me. And I said, you know what? If research ever wants to find out about a human brain and passing new pathways in the brain, they need to examine a writer's brain, because I'm sure we've created new pathways in our mind that's not being used, that they didn't think was being utilized.
And some of them are twisty, turny mountain roads.
Yeah.
I don't know if it happens to you, but often the book that I get the middle of the night revelation on is not the book that I owe next.
Exactly. And that's when you have the post-it notes, when you have your iPad and get up and you click on it real quick and you save. My aha moments comes to me in the shower, like at night, and I'm like, oh, so that's where that's supposed to go. And I, run outside and I'm telling my husband all about it. And he's like, what goes on in that shower? Really? What goes on in there? I go in there, I take a shower, nothing happens. You go in there, take a shower, you come out with a book plot, an ending, and probably a movie. I'm like, it just works.
Yeah, it's that thinking place.
Yeah.
So, what attracted you to writing romance as a core genre?
Um, this is going to go back to being 12 years old in Barbados, stealing my aunt's romance novels. I was a voracious reader, and I was like, okay, Nancy Drew, done with the Hardy Boys, what Katie did next, And I was like, I saw my brother had a Robert Ludlum, and I read that, and I was like, I like the adult stuff. And I was 12, and I was reading Robert Ludlum books, even though I wasn't supposed to. And so I went over to my aunt's, and they were complete romance nuts. I mean, they had stacks and stacks, Barbara Cartland's, the old Mills and Boones, the old Love Sweats, and all of those. And I started reading them and fell in love with, the bodice rippers, the Fabio on the corners, his chest open, and the girl with all the ruffled skirts. Usually Iris Johansson books. And I was enthralled. So then I started writing and found that I had a knack for it. And every place I could read, I would read on the bus, I would read at the beach. We have this thing that on Sundays after dinner, we all go to the beach, we play, we swim. I'm under a tree reading a book or writing in a book. And that's where it really started for me, and it progressed, throughout my life. I never really thought about it until um, I met my husband, and I was, raising kids, and life takes over, and you have a regular job. You put all those dreams and aspirations to the back of your mind. And when he got deployed, I started writing him little stories to keep him, upbeat. And it was like little romance stories about me and him going to Barbados, going to the beach, exploring the world. And he loved them. And he used to share them with his, print them out, and they'd all go around the platoon and everything. And then by the time he comes back, they're all rumpled. He's like, we need another one. And he just said, babe, you should be doing this, seriously. And I'm like, this is just for you guys. There's no way I can make it in the big bad world of publishing. He's like, no, you can do this. Write a whole book before I come home. And I'm like, okay. So I wrote my first book, Paradise Found. Of course, it was set in Charlotte, and it featured an Army major. And I wrote it and I sent it to him, and he was like, I love this. And then I just, started querying it. Got a lot of networking done on MySpace. And found that there was, indie publishing, and thought that I should try that first before I try to hit any of the major publishers. And I kind of stuck in indie publishing for a little while. And then I went on to, being a self-published author, and now I'm a hybrid, which is indie and traditional. So it took a lot of evolution there to get where I am now.
Well, I love hearing that kind of story because, so often people get the idea that these things are overnight successes, and usually the overnight success has been working at it for 15 or 20 years.
I mean, it took me 14 years to get to the USA bestseller list. And it will probably take me another, 14 years to get to New York Times. I hope not. I'm working hard towards not. But you have to put it in perspective that no matter how much you love this and how much it's your passion, it's also a job. And we are putting hours upon hours into our work. And sometimes when everyone's asleep and it's 3 a.m, we have a cup of coffee and we are typing away. And then we get up and we get kids off to school and we do errands, and then we come right back to it. So we're kind of taking on a job on top of a job on top of a job. And some people have careers with it, and it's so much hard work. So I can never say to anyone, oh, this was smooth sailing and it was easy. Bumps along the road, tears shed, more tears shed, stress. But if you want it, you work towards it. And if it's your passion, you keep at it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, the historicals that you write, what time period or time periods do you cover, and how did you pick those?
I cover around the Victorian era. Um, and I picked that because another funny story, we were tracing my husband's genealogy through ancestry.com because he's part Scottish, and we found that his people actually, lived in Barbados. They settled in Barbados, and there's actually a McPherson clan in Barbados. Found out that Barbados does have its own tartan in Scotland registered, and I'm going to buy a kilt in that tartan eventually. And we even have Highland games and we have Scottish Day. And I was like, oh, wow, this is intriguing. And so I started the research from there, and I researched, indentured servitude, how pirates came to Barbados, how Scottish pirates came to the Caribbean. And I set it around the time where slavery was abolished, because slavery was abolished in the Caribbean in 1832 or 34, something like that. And then it was abolished in England. So basically, people were allowed to work and make a pay and make a profit, own homes, have schooling and everything. But then women were still women. And then you had black free women who were still not being treated fairly. So I came up with the premise of writing strong women that live in the Caribbean in historical times. And I gave them strong Scottish male heroes that can, match up to their wit and their strengths. And I absolutely love the world that I'm building because I run it the whole gauntlet of the Caribbean from Nassau straight up to the Lesser Antilles. And I'm building like this whole world in there. So it's really fun to write. And sometimes it bounces from the Caribbean back to England or it bounces to Scotland. But yeah, it's really amazing to know that there's so much ways that my culture intertwines with European and Scottish culture.
That's really cool. What are some of your favorite ways to research?
I love books. I buy all the research books. I am going to say I'm a never an internet researcher unless I have to. It has to be like really quick and I need something, but I have stacks and stacks of research books. When I went to Barbados, we were supposed to be on vacation, but I was in a bookstore buying all of the historical books I can find, and I went there. I got to search through some of the old, archive books and everything, and got some really good names of books that were supposed to be out of print, but they were reprinted. So I found them on Amazon, and I just kept buying books. So I have research books on everything from mythical creatures to like, Scottish hierarchies.
I I have I understand. We all have very strange libraries that serve our needs, and there's always one more book. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
You can't just
No,
buy one book.
no, no, of course not. It's kind of like potato chips. You can't have just one. Oh, what about the paranormals? Now, what angle do you take on that? And what drew you into wanting to write those?
I am a sci-fi buff. Anyone that's met me on Facebook or anywhere will know that I've watched every Sharknado and I've watched every B movie. And I love vampires. I love werewolves. I love anything paranormal. Don't like zombies so much, so I won't write zombies. But I just love the whole set of, being that there's two individual things living in one body with a primal mindset and a human mindset, and the predator and the human always have to look for balance, even in vampires. And I like to write that they're not like fluffy, sparkly vampires, they're predators. So I love to take away from that and kind of make it a little darker because I'm a Scorpio and I'm kind of the dark side. I go to the dark side really quickly. And I mean, all of my books, all of my movies, always leads me towards the paranormal, and I've always loved it. So when I found out I could, hey, write shifters and vampires, and people are actually going to read this, nice. I was all in. So one of my favorites is dragons because I have a whole series called the Paladin Dragons with 12 dragon warriors, and I built a whole world that's an alternate universe to the Earth, and they are the protectors of the Earth from Odin. And we are on book 10 right now of that whole series, and I have to write the very last book at Dragon's End. and finish out that series. And I've kind of like put it back and put it back a little more because when I finish the series, it means that I'm finished the series. And I feel a little sad about that, but you know, my readers keep asking for it, so it's on the list. It'll come out this year, and then I'll mourn a little bit because the series is over.
It's always hard to say goodbye.
It is. They are wonderful. They're all in there, and I love them. Like you can visualize them, and you can visualize the world that I built, and I'm like, oh, you're going to be gone.
But sometimes, you know, sometimes those series you can see them continuing because they're kind of open-ended, and then other series just have an arc and you know when you've gotten to the end.
Yep. And I know that this one is the end. I've been writing this series from 2008, and I'm like, okay, it's the end. We've got to end it.
And now let's talk a little bit about the thrillers you write under your other pen name. What makes them different from your Dahlia Rose books?
They're dark. They're very dark. They're usually involving serial killers. A lot of MDK, as I call it, murder, death, kill. And a lot of procedural, you know, police officers, gritty cop, kind of noir, dark, you know, New York, Paris. I have one that's called Never Forget Paris, and it's kind of set in the Paris catacombs, where there's all this, you know, the skulls and everything. And I was like, ooh, that's a great place to set a mystery or a murder. So I set it there. And I have one set in New Orleans and one set in New York. And then I have a whole series set in New York, the New York crime scene series. And I just find that writing Dahlia Rose and writing contemporary and all those romances where it's love and everything can't really go over to, you know, the dark side, because they'd be like, whoa, what's happening here? We went from contemporary, now everybody's dead. So I came up with my new pen name, and I was like Billy Arseneau because I love New Orleans. And so that's where it came from, and it took off from there because that she's a little darker than Dahlia. So there are two different mindsets.
What attracted you to the whole police procedural cop kind of movies? Do you have a track record watching these on TV or reading them, or how'd you get involved?
I wanted to be a police officer or a forensic scientist forever. My mom said she was going to disown me if I did either. And I was always fascinated with it. So I, you know, couldn't be it. You know, time went on, I had kids, and I was like, okay, can't be a police officer, but I can learn about it and investigate it. And it's kind of like I like procedural cop shows as well. I know some of them are way out of left field with DNA and everything, but I like the realistic ones, and I like serial killer movies, and the ID channel is like one of my favorite, Forensic Files, City Confidential, and I watch all of these and I'm like thinking way ahead, like I know who did what. I'm one of those people that know who done it before who done it. And I love twisting that into my work. So I absolutely, yes, am a cop, procedural drama, serial killer junkie.
Yeah, I often know who done it, but I hang in there till the end because I don't know why or how. There's always some missing piece. Just figuring out who the murderer is, it isn't the end of the puzzle if you don't know why or how. Yeah,
it's like I Sherlock Holmes. It's like the new Sherlock Holmes, and well, any Sherlock Holmes. There's a mystery and a mystery and a mystery, and I love that part about, you know, forensics and police and crime and data. Even, yeah, I do have research books on forensic, you know, data, like researching, you know, the dark web and everything like that. I keep telling my husband, one of these days, someone is going to see what I'm researching on the computer, and they're going to come to the door. We're going to have to explain why I'm a writer.
I think all writers live in fear of that. Is if somebody takes a look at our Google history out of context, we're just in so much trouble.
We're doomed. They're just going to have to get a whole prison force because we all do it.
Or if someone in your circle disappears and they come and look at your library, it's all over.
Exactly. Then you have to go prove your own innocence, and then you're solving your own crime.
And it's The Fugitive all over again, yeah. Is there any genre that you haven't tackled yet, but you'd like to? Or you think maybe someday?
I think someday I'm going to really tackle noir, because I love that dark Harlem Renaissance kind of setting where, you know, if you've ever seen Sin City, that whole graphic, dark kind of role. And I think I'm going to try that and probably set it in the Harlem Renaissance. And I actually have something plotted out for that. I just haven't got to it. That's going to be my hobby right for now, because I have so many other things on deadline and I need to turn into my agent and everything, that I'm like, okay, one of these days I'm going to have a minute and I'm just going to delve into this.
Do you have a file of series ideas for someday?
Yep, I have a plot Bible. I call it I have like 3 plot Bibles that are like this thick of different things and pictures and, ideas that I need. And my agent is funny. She always says, "Do you have something in your plot Bible for?" And I'm like, "Let me look." Okay, I got one. And then she's like, "I love your plot Bible," because I just, we always as authors have a function of ideas and we got to put them somewhere. And I'm one of those old fashioned people that like to write out stuff. I know I use the computer and I have to type, but I love writing out things, and I love paper, pens, books, plot boards, everything. So I don't save it on the computer. I save it on my plot boards or in my plot Bibles.
I understand completely. I mean, because as we were saying earlier, sometimes the idea comes to you at a very inconvenient time. It's like, yes, okay, I really love this and I want to write it, but I'm going to park it over here until I meet some deadlines, and we'll work into the rotation.
Exactly. At some point, maybe for Christmas when you take a vacation, which is technically not a vacation because you're taking 2 weeks off, but you're still writing.
Well, yeah, writing's what I used to do when I went on vacation, because that was when I got to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Who wants to not write?
Exactly. We're going to Barbados for 3 weeks in July, and my husband and my son are like, "Oh, pool, beach, yay!" And I'm like, "I'm just gonna park by the pools, and I'm gonna have my laptop, and I'm gonna work. I'm gonna let you guys drag me out for a little bit. I understand, see family, but you know what? At some point in there, to relax me, I'm going to work." That's my relaxation in a way.
Oh, writing with a view of the ocean, best thing ever.
Yes, and we are right there by the ocean and close to my aunt, so I won't cook. She'll cook.
Even better.
My family will cook. I'll, hit them up for food instead of making dinner. It's vacation. They haven't seen me in forever. They should want to feed me.
Yes, I think that's only fair. Now, I see the Doctor Who stuff behind you, and I know we've talked about Doctor Who on other panels. Any chance you might ever try a sci-fi or futuristic novel?
Definitely would. Definitely would, and I would love to do that so very much. I'm such a Doctor Who buff. Torchwood, Doctor Who, anything along that line. I have all the books. I have the memorabilia. I have all the doctors. My husband thinks of the little. I even have the Daleks and everything, as you can see up there. And I would love to write a futuristic or something steampunkish. And again, plot Bible, it's in there for when I can really put some time into it.
It's fun though, having those future projects, because it's kind of like unlocking a new level in a game. Once I get all this done, then I can unlock the level and I can get to write that story finally.
Exactly. And I'm thinking about how could I set a futuristic steampunk in the islands, because we see all the futuristic set in, London and America and everything, but you never see it set in the islands. And I'm like, what's going on over there beyond the equator? What's going on? So I'm really trying to figure out how to blend those two together, and when that idea pops, I'm on it.
That's cool. Now I gotta ask, who's your favorite Doctor?
Only one. Oh, well, I'll have.
Who are your favorite Doctors?
4th, for sure, and then 9th, 10th, 12th.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool enough.
Yep. Those are my favorite, and I love number 4 because that's who I started out with, and then I went all the way back.
Yeah. You never forget your first dog.
You never forget them.
And I know we've talked on other panels as well that you're a Supernatural fan.
Oh, yes. Sam and Dean. Tried to convince my husband to buy an Impala. He will not.
That's hardcore. I haven't even tried to do that.
It's so cool, and if he ever bought one, I would, take the little army man and stick it in the, thing, just like how Sam did. I just want to make it a complete replica of, baby.
Yeah, why not?
I think, and their characters are completely amazing. I think over the whole series, we saw them grow up so much. It was like watching them grow up from, like, rebellious boys and fighting each other to, becoming really close knit. It was a journey, and I loved every minute of it.
It was wonderful to see a show that allowed that kind of character development.
Exactly. Yep. We don't usually get that. I mean, we get like shows like, that they are more focused on the actual, you know, not the nuances of the people, but they go in straight into the nitty gritty and don't let people grow. It's like watching Lucifer. We watched Lucifer, the show, and you saw him evolve and grow as well. And I like something, any show that you can see an evolution of self instead of just kill, 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 do this, do that. But Sam and Dean was the best of all of them.
Oh, hey, I totally agree. But I know, so many shows, no matter how long they're on, at the end, I always pick Gunsmoke as an example because my dad used to watch that. Marshall Dillon was exactly the same at the end of the 20 years as he was at the beginning of the 20 years. There was there was no anything. He was just him.
He was just Marshall Dillon. I think my first endings was MASH. I think I was still a kid when that ended, but I bawled my eyes out. I love that show. I still watch that show.
And it was also great for character evolution and having them grow and change and come to some kind of difficult and dark revelations. But
they were funny, but it was serious. They had a serious undertone to it.
Speaking of which, do you use humor in your books? And if so, how do you solve that in around all the adventure and romance?
Rom-coms. I also write those. And one of my favorite rom-coms to write so far was My Love Happens in Westerly series. And it's set in a nondescript small North Carolina town near Raleigh called Westerly. And they call it a love nexus because every time you drive over the border, your car radio turns to 80s love songs. And, if you meet someone in Westerly, you end up falling in love. And the first book was called I Think We're Alone Now, 80s reference. And it was basically, new doctor goes to the VA and he meets the nurse that works there, and the VA is severely underfunded. And she's from a crazy, quirky, blended family. And somehow he is drawn into the crazy, the love nexus, the, margarita Friday night luau's, because they have a Friday night luau every Friday night. He tried to climb a tree and her father, used the hose and knocked him out of the tree. It's a lot of hijinks in there, and the town characters really, we have the main characters, yeah, but the town characters, the friends and the family definitely make it. The second book was called Eclipse of the Heart, and it featured a UFO sighting and a guy that thought he was a werewolf, and a bachelor party that went horribly wrong when they thought they saw a UFO, and all between all of that, the couple falls in love. But those are hilarious to write.
And you mentioned a book in the same sentence as the word Hallmark. Can you say more about that? Or
yeah, Hallmark. I have my first book with them. Hopefully more. Fingers crossed. It's called Mistletoe in Juneau. It's a fish out of water kind of series where my heroine is from New York, and she's a influencer online. She vlogs and everything, and her best friend lives in Juneau, Alaska, in one of the towns called Ayuk Bay. And she goes to visit her because she's going to have a baby. and they have a Northern Light Festival, and it's Christmas. And the town sheriff happens to be a military vet who's an amputee. So, hijinks and foods. It's a little funny in there because they have a pet turkey that chases her all the time, and she falls off a ski-doo. It's just like a fish out of water, taking a New Yorker and dropping her in 3 feet of snow. So it's just basic. It's very sweet and very Christmassy, and I loved writing it. It comes out in October 19th, yep, of this year. We are all done with edits and everything. No cover yet, but hopefully I get a cover reveal soon. But I
Now,
loved writing that world.
now is that your first holiday related book, or have you snuck holidays in on other books?
Oh, I've snuck holidays in everywhere, and they're usually military themed.
Mm-hmm.
I I love Christmas. I love Halloween, and I love any of the holidays that fall after summer are my favorite. So Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Christmas especially, I like to write like coming home romances where the hero comes home or the heroine comes home, and there's like love and Christmas and you know trees and hot toddies and peppermint sticks. And I just like my books tend to like throw up Christmas because I throw everything in there. And there's usually, and I think Dear Santa was one of my favorites because it started out in being overseas deployed, and they fell in love, and then it moved to being stateside, but it was all centered in Christmas.
Yeah, holidays are just so much fun to write, and especially when you throw a character into that situation, you can find out a lot about a person by the way they approach holidays or what
Yep.
they're like around their family at holidays.
I love the holidays, definitely. I love the cooking, I love the smells, I love gift wrapping. I like doing all the food, and I no one comes in my kitchen when I'm cooking for the holidays. It's my kitchen. I don't want any help. You guys go sit down and go help dad at the smoker. He's smoking meat or something. I just don't come in my kitchen. And I want to prepare everything and make it look pretty, and then I want to sit down and watch everyone eat because I will not eat until the next day. You're tired, you make it all, and then it's like you're full from tasting and making sure everything is perfect, so I won't actually eat the meal until the next day.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you incorporate any traditions for any of the holidays from your Barbados roots?
Definitely do. And I've actually set books in Trinidad and Barbados for Christmas. And we have a dish called pepper pot, which is basically it's like a stew that is primarily something we serving for Christmas. It has beef and chicken and all different things in it, carrots, potato, and it's lovely over rice. And we have these trees that only we don't have snow, but we have these trees that the leaves turn white only at Christmas time. So we call them snow on the mountain. So everyone has these trees around, and they smell lovely. It's just like Christmas. I can sit and I can smell and taste Christmas at home. There's bands that come through the neighborhood playing music, and they stop at each house, and you give them something to eat. They play music, and they have drinks with your dad because you're not old enough to drink, kinda, but you still do. And it's just a beautiful time there. And I definitely have to take my kids home so they can experience it.
Yeah, I mean, that just sounds wonderful to bring the best of everything together.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's a
Now,
whole big, small village of people that know each other. And I always say you will never meet a Barbadian people, that person that won't invite you into their home or their friendship.
that's fantastic. Now, have you done any other travel for some of the settings of your books, or do you base them on some places that you've been?
I Georgia, London, different places, definitely Barbados. When St. Vincent, the Grenadines, I kind of like traveling. If I haven't seen it, I want to travel to it. And so this year, we are planning a trip to Paris because that has been my go-to forever. I'm like, I keep pushing it to the bottom of the list, and I'm like, no. Now, after the last year and all we've gone through, top of the list. So that's definitely going to be a place that I explore and research. And then I think I'm going back in May of 2022 for Rare 22, which is the Readers and Writers Expo, something like that. So I definitely want to do more traveling to get more insights and taste. And I have to go eat everything basically. Food, you need to taste the food from every culture.
Absolutely. And sometimes you just go someplace and you say, oh, I'm gonna make this, this is
Hmm.
gonna be a setting for a book because
Yep.
there should be a book set here.
I felt that way about New Orleans and all the tours and the houses,
Mhm.
and we went to the Absinthe Bar, and the upstairs was supposed to be haunted, and I was like, oh, I've got to do something. This is perfect for a vampire show. They can, upstairs vampire lives in haunted house, Absinthe Bar. And then we saw the house that apparently, I think they said Elizabeth Bathory, the New Orleans version of her, lived in, and it was super haunted. We didn't get to go in there because they said it was closed, but it was kind of spooky, and I took pictures. I loved it. So definitely, and the food is amazing.
Yeah, the food is so good.
Kept
So
me
when
on the
you're
diet.
not writing,
Hmm.
what do you do for fun besides watch maybe Doctor Who and Supernatural?
I read. I watch sci-fi. I'm going back through the Babylon 5 series right now, and I'm going to watch everything from Babylon 5 straight through to Crusaders. That's my mission. I read comics, and I graphic novels, comics. I go through a bunch of that. I dance because I'm from the Caribbean and I have to dance. I love dancing, and um, I paint, or sometimes I just relax with some music, and I definitely cook because I think cooking is my art too, and I love making new things, especially desserts
Mm.
to treat people with. So I made a dolce de leche like cupcake the other day, and they just went crazy for it. And I was like, okay, well that one works. They were like, you're not making it anymore. I'm like, not right now.
So what are your specialty desserts?
My specialty desserts would probably be my strawberry, um, my cookies, chocolate chip cookies, strawberry milkshake cookies, and my ice cream bread because I actually make bread with ice cream.
Oh,
So you can, yep, and it is delicious. And I love making banana bread and definitely cupcakes because I can make cupcakes and I make my own preserves and my own fillings to go in them. And then I get to decorate them however I want. So, and cheesecake. Can't forget cheesecake because that's I don't like sweets, and I'll make all this stuff and I won't eat it. But if I make a cheesecake, I will eat that whole thing.
it's hard to say no. It's
For
just hard to say
cheesecake,
no.
yeah.
Now I've got to ask, you mentioned a whole lot of puppies, and I've seen some of the pictures on Facebook. How do, where, how many? Tell us about the puppies.
My Dash and Potato had six puppies with her little boyfriend Nico, and she was huge, number one. And then as soon as she got bigger, she got lazy. We had to carry her everywhere because she's like, I'm not carrying this. I'm not carrying this load by myself. And so she had six puppies on the 18th of April. My The vet said she was going to have four, and then when we went in for the final X-ray, she was like, no, there's six. And I'm like, she's a mini doxy. How she have six babies in there? But she has six of them, and now they're rambunctious, eyes open, eating solid foods, yipping, crying, trying to. My husband spoils them and puts them in the bed, and now they think they can be in the bed. And I'm like, this is on you because now they're yipping and crying to get into bed. And I'm like, and they are a handful, but they're so damn cute. They're so cute, and they're long little mini wiener bodies. They're little Hillshire smoky sausages. But they're a handful. But in the next few weeks, they'll be going to different homes, and my husband's going to be heartbroken.
But you'll have more room in your bed.
Yes, we're keeping one. I told him he can have one, and I think she's supposed to have another litter. And I said you can have one of that. I said you can have a three wiener dog army, no more.
There you go. There you go. I can't imagine how there'd be room for anybody in a bed with 7 dogs.
We have one of those California kings, and my 12-year-old
Okay.
still climbs into bed to watch TV with us at night. And I'm like, don't you have cartoons to watch? He's like, no, we're watching Grey's Anatomy. I'm like, I have so broken you as a little boy. You were so broken. Or we've got the Sci-Fi Channel to watch. I'm like, your wife is going to hate me.
Oh, well, tell us some more about what you've got upcoming. What are going to be some of your next releases, and what can we look forward to?
Next releases, I have a love-hate relationship coming up, and that is set in Wyoming. Two state prosecutors that hate each other, but kind of, get together one night and make a baby, and now they're trying to navigate that whole set of crazy. And then I have my historical The Owl and the Pussycat coming out, and that's about a female cat burglar and a duke who's kind of like the investigator that has to, catch her. But he already knows who she is, and he uses that information to court and marry her. But he has alternative reasons for trying to save her as well. And I'm going to be at Con Carolinas, and I'm going to be at Multiverse in October, and then I am going to be at Book Lovers Con in December. And a multitude of other books, Rave's Law, another book in my Royal Fairy Tale series. I just have a list that I just have to check off every time something comes up.
Well, I'll be seeing you at Con Carolinas, which will be wonderful.
Yay! I'll bring you some ice cream bread.
Oh, I love you. Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Well, we have gone through our time. It's gone so fast, but this has been so much fun. And I will be looking for pictures of the cute little puppies. But thank you so much for joining us. Tell us where people can find you on social media, please.
You can find me at Facebook, and I have a fan page on Facebook, Fans of Dahlia Rose. You can find me on Twitter, Dahlia Rose 1029, Instagram, Books and Maine, and I think TikTok, but I don't know how to use that TikTok thing, so I am not there a lot. But you can definitely find me on Twitter and Facebook, and my website is www.dahliaroseunscripted.com.
Well, thank you so much for being here and talking about all these wonderful things. It's been so much fun, and the time went so fast. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. We'll have more romance coming up soon here on ConTinual, so we'll see you online.
Bye, guys.